All right, I think we can get started. Welcome. This is an open source GIS tutorial. I'm going to be showing you specifically how to quantify the diffusion of pollution from emission sources like smokestacks from factories. So I guess throughout this process, you're going to pick up the tools to do any kind of GIS analysis, and I'll try to explain everything. But in the meantime, just know that there exists this GIS tutorial, which gives you everything you ever need in detail, including how to, where to download all of the things, the tools that you will need. And again, it's all free. So the basic idea is we want to create a map like this, and we want to be able to show the effect of certain emission sources, these blue dots, on the neighboring regions using a specific model and specific assumptions. But we'll get into all of that. So for now, you should have access to a GIS tutorial folder, which should just make sure, I'll just scroll down here, that it has all of these things. There's an R file, which is the model, the code. This is the tutorial. That should not be there. I will get rid of that. But these are the different layers, the census layers, in a sense, the raw data. And just realize that this split file is something I had to do externally that I couldn't do in open source, but you have that, and I will get to that momentarily. So I think let's just kind of get to the desktop. I just want to show you that we've got these four kind of guys. Google Earth, if you have raw data like that you've inputted, all these different firms, you can export them by exporting this file as a KML file, and then we have to subsequently put that into GIS as what's called a shape file, which is something that, shape being like that, shape file, or .shp. And shape files are kind of the working horse of GIS. They are layer files. But I wanted to just show you this because I have two versions here, because the latest version doesn't have that KML conversion tool. It will soon, I'm sure, but it doesn't at the current, when I had this. And then this here is, so that's why I have two of these, and then the other software is called Quantum GIS or QGIS. So these are your two kind of open source GIS software that we're going to use, and then you might want Google Earth, which is also free. So let's begin by, the first thing you want to do is, let's open, this is 4.8, the later version. Now in this legend is where you usually import your layers by doing add. So it'll go right to my tutorial folder because I've got the directory set up. And let's just add all the stuff we have. These are census layers. And there's India. This is a project on India. Behind each of these census layers are what is called an attribute table, which basically is a database of a georeference database of all these variables that you see here, which is excellent. So just so you know, this is where we're going to be doing most of our work. There's these two things, field calculator and build query, where you can kind of add new fields and use the field calculator to, say I want this field to equal A plus B or whatever it is. And then query says, I want a new layer that just takes the observations that fall in a certain criteria range. And those are the two main kind of like things you want to know about. In here, you can also export once you've selected a feature, once you've queried for it, you export it, and that's how you get your shape file. So for now, actually, what I'm going to do, so if you've ever worked with Photoshop, it's kind of like that. You can turn on and off these layers. I don't like the towns; they kind of get in the way. But and extent will always. So I can use this plus thing to zoom in somewhere. And if I want to ever go back, the extent of the map will go to there. But say I wanted to go to the extent of something a little smaller. So again, I'm turning on and off layers. I'll explain what this split thing is in a minute. But basically what you do is we have districts, states, and then sub-districts, which are even smaller than districts. And then I cut those sub-districts in certain areas, and it's this dark purple. I don't know if you can see that. So what actually we're going to just get right in, and what we want to do is let's get rid of these. This is for 3 states, Gujarat, Maharashtra, and Tamil Nadu. But for this tutorial, I'm going to go to the extent and just zoom in a little. For this tutorial, we really want to focus on Gujarat. So in a minute, I'm going to just select that, and we'll work on that. But for now, I'm going to go back to my older version of map window because I need my industries on there. So I already, I showed you the industries in Google Earth, and we're just going to take them now by going to my GIS tutorial materials. Oops, I think they should be in there. Okay. Okay, welcome back. Sorry, I realized I was missing something. Basically, I didn't have this file in here, and actually I added one more, and I got rid of that map file. So back to where we were, we wanted to add, we wanted to convert this KML file. I'm going to close this guy. Right. We wanted to convert the industries into something that we know. In fact, let's just convert the industries. So there's two ways to do it. You can convert the shapefile here, or you can convert the folder contents. The folder contents would mean that if you had a number of KML files, it would convert each one in a sequence. But we just need this for now, and then select save placemark name as attribute. All that means is that the name of the industry here will be an attribute, and so when you can actually open it and know which one it is. So let's convert that guy, and note it's going to save into the directory. And the way I know that is because, okay, I think it's converted. Yep. So it put it right inside there. But I don't like this older version. So, and note that whenever you do like an operation on a layer and it executes, it's done. It's saved. It's a real file. So I can just X out of here without saving, and now add it to the more updated version. There it is. So it's back in my directory. And there they are. There are my firms. You can change the place marks by right-clicking on a given layer and going either to properties or to shapefile categories. There's a lot of ways, but we'll deal with that later when we want to export our map. But for now, I wanted to show you how to query, because we just want Gujarat. We're doing a map for Gujarat, and I had manually made this layer earlier around. You'll see these like spiderwebby things around where we thought the old industries would be, but that might have changed for now. And industries, by the way, are the sort of Indian convention for saying firms. Okay, so let us take this split subdistrict thing that I have, and let's open the attribute table, and let's do a query. So let's build a query that says, let me take the state, and I want the state value, and this is all in SQL, by the way, if you know how to use SQL or SQL based. I don't really know so much about it, but I want all states that equal to Gujarat, and I want to execute it, and I want to create a new selection. So I've queried, and it's selected all of the Gujarati states. I'm going to close now, and then I'm going to take the selection, I'm going to export the selected features, and I'm going to call this guy split subdistricts GU, like that. And please save it in the same way, the same name, because we will use it later. So save, and let's load it. Why not? So now let me get out of the attribute table. Oh, it's still loading. Okay. And lo and behold, there it is, that blue one over. So if I get rid of the purple guy, and again go to my fancy extent tool, there it is. So this is going to begin looking like the map I built there. You see that? So now I want to put the firms above the map. There they are. Okay, that makes sense. Spiderweb's there, right? Okay, fair enough. So now what we want to do is we want to take distances between these firms and the different subdistricts, which are these different pieces. So how are we going to do that when there's no, which point in these subdistricts is it going to take? Well, we're going to create a point that represents the centroid, which is like an algorithm that determines the center point of these shapes, which, by the way, are called polygons in GIS, which may or may not annoy you. So what we're going to do, I'm going to first check something that's kind of subtle. I want to make sure that in my, so this shape ID refers to the actual shape, the polygon. But I want an ID, oh, that's not supposed to be there. We do not have PM concentration yet. Let me just remove it. And it's a good way to show you how to add or remove, but we haven't calculated PM concentration yet. So let's get rid of that and apply it, because you got to apply to save it, the shapefile. Okay, so what I want to do actually is I want to just basically generate a unique ID. And so I'm going to click that. I went to Tools, and there it is. Map Window Shape ID. And I don't know why you have to do that. You can't use a shape ID, but you have to. And there's 488 of them, including 0. So it's 0 and 487. And then that's done. And I'm glad I have that because you'll see in a minute. Now I have to do a couple things. So I'm going to go to QGIS, which is the other program. I'm going to add that layer I was just working on, the one I just created that I queried for. Let's open it. You'll notice it looks a little different. I'm going to go to vector, where these analysis tools and these, well, these are vector will have all these tools that can be applied to vectors. And so I'm going to go to geometry tools, polygon centroids, and they're it's pretty straightforward. I call it centroids. Why not? And save that. And now let's calculate the centroids. And yeah, sure, let's put it on the map. And there they are. You can see them there, which is excellent. So now I have centroids. Now just for fun, let's also add the industries. There they are. So now we can create distances, right? We can generate distances between here and use them as inputs in our pollution diffusion map, and then calculate the pollution diffusion and bring it back in the map. Except there's one problem. GIS, every GIS map, every layer is basically tailored to a coordinate system. And the coordinate system has a base unit, and this one is using decimal degrees, which is this weird quadrant-based unit that tells you the position, which makes it really hard to use a tool that calculates distances, because we want that in meters. So I know how to do this best on map window, and I apologize for going back and forth, but remember, if I save a layer here, it will export to my directory, and it sees that, and then I can pick it here if I want. And that's precisely what I'm going to do. I'm going to pick up the centroids file. And what I want to do is something that's called a reprojection. So whereas I showed you the tools before in QGIS, here you just go to the toolbox, and I'm going to reproject my shapefiles. And I'm going to take the two shapefiles I'm interested in, which are the centroids and the industries, and I want to reproject them to this guy, which I know is meter-based. And I'm going to just hit reproject, and it's going to export my shapefiles with the reprojection coordinate system here. So it's the same name but with the coordinate system, and then I'll close. And it's not gonna, it doesn't want to add it to the map because it's on a different coordinate system. Now I'm going to go back to QGIS. Actually, I'm going to close QGIS, and I'm going to discard the project because I don't need this because the things have been exported. Go back to QGIS. I'll show you why I want QGIS here. And now there they are, my two projected layers. So now they're meter based, which is great. And oh, I forgot to show you how do I know how they're, how do we know whether they're what their coordinate system is? Well, you can go to your properties. So you can always right click on these layers, and you get your attribute table or your properties, and there it is. There's the coordinate system. And you just need to know basically a little bit about these coordinate systems, which you can just do Google research to figure out. But why do I want this all in QGIS? Because it has this neat tool, analysis tool called distance matrix. And I'm going to take the distance between centroids, which are going to be my I row, and the industries, which are going to be my J column. And remember, I created this unique ID, so now it's really easy because I have these unique IDs, and I want to create sort of a rectangular matrix rather than like a source target matrix with distances. You can do that too if that's what you want. And then this thing basically just exports a CSV file, and so I'm going to call that distance matrix. And please save again with the same name. And I'm going to export it or calculate the distances. All right, so it should be done. I'm going to just pause for a second, and I will be right back. Okay, I'm back from my little break. So we calculated a distance matrix. Now what do we want to do? Well, I have this R code, which should be in your folder, this guy, Diffusion framework, which basically says, hey, let's take the distance matrix you just calculated, and let's take the database associated with the layer subdistricts. This layer, subdistrict, this one, split subdistricts Gujarat. Actually, let me just show it. Now, every time that we have a shapefile, it will always have, so that, like, for example, that split sub, it always has a associated DBF file, database file. So the neat thing that I could do in R is I can rewrite over this, and when I open it back in GIS, just the regular shapefile, the database will be updated. So forget about, you know, having to induce data, or there's this operation that you can do within GIS called joins, but they're really painful. And so this to me is easier, and for our purposes it's actually much easier. So all you need to know about this code is it takes a distance matrix, and it takes the you know, the final database that we want to add particulate matter concentration to, so we can later display it, and then it writes back over that file. And it uses this formula here. This is a specific model, and I write all the assumptions, and Yuanjin Lee helped me a lot with this. But basically, the ground level concentration is a function of a bunch of stuff. One of those things is distance, which we have. Okay, so in theory, you have these things saved correctly, so let's just run this code. I'm gonna clear it. Clear that just in case, and let's run it. And remember, what we're doing here is we should at the end have again, this is just the formula that I just showed you, but we should by the end of this have the amount of particulate matter that based on some assumptions that in every split subdistrict. So that's exactly kind of like what we're after. So that makes it incredibly easy. So in the meantime, while that's running, it's going to be just a second, but I am going to just, you know, clear out all these layers. I'm sure there's an easier way to do this, but why don't I just X out and X back in? Oh, and see, the R code's already done. So how do I know whether the R code worked? Well, let's open back the split subdistricts, and let's just check it out in the attribute table. If it worked, there should be some new columns. And there they are, particulate matter before, and this is just that column times 0.6. We just assumed some kind of scaling that was the effect of the program as a simulation. But when you have the real data, you can just plug that in there. That might be a problem, but I'll take a look at that later. But these numbers look right. And so voila, we have now our PM associated with districts. So let's make a map. So we always want to show the industries on top of the map. And remember, I didn't hit the projected file because we only needed that to calculate distances. Here, we're just trying to display a map. So I want to display the firms. I want to display the particulate matter, the concentration in each of these little blocks. So let's do that. So how do I do that? Now I have to deal with what's called symbology. Now, to symbologize, it's a fancy word for color in, your shapes. You can go to properties, or you can go to shapefile categories, and let's add so this is going to load all classification fields, all the variables in your shapefile, and I want PM before, and I'm just going to call it 10. So you can do natural breaks, quantiles. This is going to hit a legend. You know, how do I want a color code? But we want a gradient. And I actually made this gradient. I think it's a nice pollution gradient, red being very severe, but you can always sort of like make your own if you don't like the colors that they have. So that's actually what I did. I just kind of did this 3-color thing. Whoever said economists can't be artistic. But anyways, so now I have my color scheme, and it broke it up for me already. So here are how many of the subdistricts fall into which category of pollution. Let's apply it, and now this is looking like, you know, kind of like what we want here at the end. I mean, it's quite similar. So let's go back. There we go. So what I want to do is I want to do just a couple little like alterations so that things kind of look nicer. So let's try that. You know, I like circle for some reason. No, I don't like circle. Let's do, what was it? Icons. Yeah, there's all types of things here. But let's outline it in black so that it's kind of clear where it is. And then, well, I wish we could do a smaller circle. Yes, you can. Okay, that maybe that, yeah, that's a little better. And then maybe let's make it a little darker. Okay, let's give it like a darker blue, something like that. That might work. Okay. All right. So, maybe 6. Okay, that's better. So, you know, if you wanted to add, I put this file in here. Did I? It might not be in there. Well, if you took your town file, for example, so let's add the towns. You have all these towns. It's kind of ugly, but you could, you know, in the same way with a query, query for the towns you want, or just Gujarat or whatever, or even in your KML, if I want to select Surat, you know, these couple cities, create a KML and import it, then we could do something really nice with the map. But I just wanted to show this to you so you know that you can do labeling. So I take the name, right? So I just opened the town file, and let's take the name, and I'm going to double click it. I'm going to press OK. And then I want to, what do I want to do? Position. You know, you can choose where you want your label. Let's do that. So there, you know, I mean, obviously this is not ideal. So I'm going to clear this in a minute. But like, you get the picture. This is how one makes a map. And eventually you're just going to export this picture. So let's just go back to the labels and let's clear them. And apply. Yes, I want to remove the labels. And then we don't care about these. But at this point, you're almost done. All you have to do is go up to Project and export your map, and a north arrow and a scale bar. So the two things I'll show you are a map. I'm just going to call it map. And then I'm going to export a legend. And again, I'm going to call it legend. And again, this is your legend. So what I generally do, I mean, if you open these files, you have a map file, you have a legend file. What I generally do, and then you can of course put, you know, your little compass and your distance scale. I just put these all in a PowerPoint and kind of set it up the way I want, and that's how it comes out looking like this, and that's basically how this works. You know, you can also use that field calculator tool when I was talking about adding columns. You know, it's the same thing, SQL based, but like say I wanted to take infant mortality as another column with respect to the total population, which is a census layer, so I could create a ratio by creating a new column that is a, you know, transformation of those other columns or variables. But basically, that's about it. The last thing you really need to know is that we've saved all these layers, but how do I save, you know, all of these symbologies that I've already made? Well, this is when you finally get to save your project, and I'm going to save it as tutorial proj. And so now whenever you know, that's just it's a nothing file that just makes the relatives, you know, saving of the different categories, not the actual data itself. And if I were to open it again, if I were to open map window and just kind of like load that project file, it should add, oh no, not add, sorry, I want to open a project. There it is, and you have it, and you're done. And so that's basically it. From here, anything that I've missed should be in this tutorial, but you know, hopefully this will give you the tools you need to start working on GIS, and I hope this has been helpful. Thank you.